Hey, it's Miss Fine again. And I just figured while I'm on a roll tonight, I would tell you guys about my piercings. So I have, let's see, okay, my ear piercings. I have my septum pierced. I got my ear piercing. Okay, I'll start from the first. I got my ear piercing. I did that actually when I was about 15 years old in high school in Jamaica. I did that myself. I got a needle and I pushed it inside of garlic because, as they said, garlic has anesthetic properties. And if you poke it into something, and put the needle into the garlic and you poke yourself, you can't feel it. When I did my piercing in my ear, I actually used the garlic and with ice, and I poked it in, and then I put the earring in. My aunt wasn't very happy about that. But I was 15 and I wanted to get my ear pierced, and she wasn't doing it, so I did it myself. And next piercing that I have is my septum piercing. My septum piercing, I got that done like 3 years ago. Pain level, I'd say pain level, getting it done, I would say for me it was like a one, between a one and a two. She did it freehand. She didn't even use any clamp or whatever. I thought she would use a clamp. I don't know if it's possible to use a clamp when you're doing a septum piercing, but she just did it freehand. She just went right through like that. By the time she just said, okay, just hold still. And then I just sat there, and the next thing I know, it was right through. I just felt a little bit of a burn though when she was putting on the ball at the end of because it wasn't this one with the pointy ends. She See, this one has a pointy end. I just got this one yesterday. I just got put on this septum piercing um yesterday. I just put this one in. But usually I would have like a round, the horseshoe one with the ball at the end instead of the pointy one. But anyways, all I know was she just said hold still, and the next thing she was pushing it through and putting the septum piercing through it. It was very, let me say, a very painful for about 2 weeks. And then I remember I had a cold, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks into the time of getting my piercing. I had a cold. And when I had the cold, I remember having to, like, like blow my nose, and it was so painful because each time it would just get so aggravated because I was just like having to blow my nose over and over. Anyways, um, it healed, I would say, within maybe about 3 months, it was completely healed. Yeah, so now I can move it around and flip it up. I have no reason to hide it. Some people, they flip their septum piercing in. I have no reason to hide it. I leave it out always. Even at work, I'm a cardiac nurse. Um, Management hasn't said anything to me about it, and it's fine. Like I always say, what's in your head, as in your brain, it stays there. It doesn't matter what your outside looks like. It's all about what you can do. So my piercings haven't affected the way that I'm perceived or whatever. I've never gotten any negative reactions from people at work. No, quite the opposite. Even like I'd have like older people, and I would, you would maybe think that they'd be, you know, maybe a bit put off by all the piercings, facial piercings that I have. But no, they actually want to talk about them and, like asking me about them and like they're asking me, do they hurt and did it hurt and stuff like that. So when I tell them that it doesn't hurt anymore and that when I did get it done, that it wasn't painful, they're like, oh, really? And then some of them, they'll tell me that they have some relative or somebody that has a lot of piercings. And then I remember this one lady, she's like, oh, my granddaughter, she has all these piercings that you have and so much more. And she says, oh, when she comes in here, I'll let you see her when she comes in. So when her granddaughter did come in, and when I went to the room, oh, she had piercings, she had tattoos. I was like, oh yeah, right on. She had so many piercings. She even had those piercers, the spacers, the ones that make you have that big hole in it. I think that's the only thing that I wouldn't do for it. You know what? Different strokes, different folks. I think that's the only one that I wouldn't do personally myself because I think if you're over the over the whole piercing thing, I don't think I'm going to be over piercing for a while yet. But I think if you get over the whole piercing thing and you decide, okay, I'm going to take out my spacers, you're still going to be left with this huge hole that to get it fixed, you're going to have surgery. For me, I think if I decide I want to take out my piercings, all I have to do is just take them out and that's it. I think within maybe a couple of days, the holes will actually close up. But anyways, like I was saying, so my next piercing that I'll tell you about, this is my Marilyn, and then this is my Medusa. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you the names very quickly because sometimes I tend to forget what this one is called. So this one is called a Medusa. Anyways, this one is my Marilyn. You know how Marilyn Monroe, she had that mole right here. Yeah. So back in the days, I used to draw my mole in right here. I used to just use a black marker. You know how we do Jamaican style. I used to draw my black marker right here. Yeah. So I used to draw my marker right there. But then after a while, I got this done about 2 years ago. So after a while, I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to draw it in anymore. I just wanted to just get a permanent one. And so far, I've been loving it. This one was very painful for about 2, 3 weeks. It seems maybe because of where it's located, like, it goes all the way through to touching my teeth. So I think what it is that it would get irritated each time when I'm chewing. I guess because I'm chewing, it would just get so irritated. So it was painful for quite a while and it was so swollen. This one, this one was the one that cost me the most trouble. Like maybe I'm gonna try to see if I can find some pictures of when my lips was so swollen. Oh my gosh. It was like it looked like I had in fillers. You know how those people put in the fillers until their lips hang out like that? Well, my top lip was like hanging out all the way over and it looked so funny. So I remember going to work. And when I went to work, I felt I know it looked swollen and it was like shiny. And I felt so uncomfortable. But, I was just like, okay, I'm going to put on a brave face and just do my job and, carry on. So then, I don't know what happened, but then I said to one of my coworkers, I said, I'm going to call her Melanie. And I said, Melanie, look at my lips. I don't know. It's so swollen. I think I'm going to get some ice for it. So she said, oh, I figured that I said no. I was telling her that I got my new piercing and it's so swollen, and I said I'm going to get some ice for it. So she goes, "Oh, it's a piercing." I said, "Yes, it's a piercing." So she goes, I just figured that you got your lips done." She's like, I just figured you got your lips done and I didn't want to say anything and make you uncomfortable. So I'm like, no, why would I do my lips? Don't you think I have enough lips? So she says, I don't know what you young people are into. I'm like, no, I'm not getting no lips done. I just got my piercing. So then I showed her. I'm like, don't you see there's a piercing there? Actually, the skin was so swollen, it was like almost totally obscuring the whole piercing. I thought that with all that swelling, there wouldn't be enough space along the bar or whatever, that there wouldn't be enough space for all that swelling. But anyways, after a while, the swelling did go, and I was like, okay, yeah, but that was just related to that piercing anyways. So, let's see. Any more piercings? Um, mm, yeah, so just this one, my septum, my Marilyn, and my Medusa, my earring piercing. Oh, I got my navel. My navel is pierced. No, you're not gonna see it. I got my navel pierced. Maybe let's see. I got my navel pierced when I was in nursing school. Um, let's say, let's see. That is, oh, actually, that is like 13 years ago. I got my navel pierced. And so far, it's still hanging in there. Like I have different, I tend to change the piercings um, depending um, on what I'm wearing. I tend to change my piercings to match. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, what was I gonna say? I always do that, don't I? I know. I tend to forget. I just go off on a tangent. But you know what? I know that you guys will bring me back just to remind me this is where you are and this is what you were talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, I got my piercings done. I'm done. I'm not even finished doing all my piercing. I wanted to get my tongue piercing done. So, when I went to the tattoo place, a tattoo and piercing place, the guy, he said to me, okay, I have to do the exam. So I'm like, okay. I lifted up my tongue and I showed him. And I don't know if you can see it, but okay, let's see. Mhm. He says, my tongue is very blue. And I said, what do you mean by my tongue is very blue? He said, you have a lot of blood vessels and so on underneath there. And he says, there's no way I'm going to touch your tongue. I'm like, really? I came all this way from Hamilton to Mississauga, and then you're telling me that you're not going to do it. He's like, no, because if I do pierce your tongue, it's going to it maybe your tongue could swell up and you'll have to go to the hospital or whatever and let them get your tongue drained. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it's that serious. It's very serious. I'm like, okay, I've never heard of that. And I said, all these other people who have their tongue piercings, what about that? How come they have their tongue piercings And don't they have the same vessels? He's like, no, people have different, like they look different and they have different kind of veins and arteries and so on going on under there. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, the next thing is, what about my tongue tip piercing? So he said, I wanted to get, I do still want to get my snake eyes. Yes, I know. Like I said, I am not done with my piercings or my tattoos. Yeah, the tattoos that I'm, no, okay, I'll tell you about that next time. Okay, so my tongue piercing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get the snake eyes. At the time, actually, I had only brought with me that to work with just then. I had only brought the $60 that they had told me it would have cost to get my tongue pierced, going down like that through the middle of my tongue, right? Like through the middle of my tongue. So I had only brought the $60, and he said to me, he said to me, it costs $120, I think he said, to get my tongue pierced. I'm like, what? Oh, that's a ridiculous sum. He's like, yeah, the reason why is because nobody else does that around here. I'm like, and that's why you charge so much? He's like, yeah. Nobody else will touch getting the snake eyes piercing done. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, they a lot of times it's dangerous because you can get your teeth can get knocked out by the piercing, or you could bite down on the piercing and it could get torn and then you can bleed and all that kind of thing. So he's like, some people are just not willing to risk their license and whatever to do it. So they just don't, they just, they don't want to risk the reputation of the shop by getting those things done. So I say, but you do it though. So he goes, yeah. So I said, you know what? Next time I'm gonna get that done, and I'll come back in here to you, and you can do my snake eyes piercing. So he's like, yeah. So and then I left. But before that, he tried to convince me to get what do you call that one? Dermals. He says, okay, because it seems he wanted my $60. I'm like, you know what? Hold up there, buddy. So he's like, first he tried to get me to pierce somewhere else. He's like, what about your eyebrow? And then he goes, mm, what about a dermal? He's like, you could get a dermal in your chest, or you could get a dermal at the side of your eye, or somewhere else. Dermals are pretty cool. I'm like, I didn't come for a dermal, and I wasn't planning on getting a dermal, so I don't know about that. So yeah. So, anyways, that's what happened with that. Look at the time. I'm all yapping away. Yeah. So that's what happened with that. Uh, and my tattoos, I'll tell you guys about my tattoos next time, okay? So, Miss Bye now. Toodaloos. Bye.